The morning sun, a generous splash of gold and crimson, promised another day of searing heat over the village of Asante. But for Kwasi, its light was a cruel mockery. It illuminated the cracked earth of his small farm, the withered crops that refused to grow, and the empty basket beside him. He was a young man of 25, but the lines of worry on his face and the calluses on his hands told a story of a life lived in constant struggle. Kwasi had tried everything. He'd woken before the first rooster to till the stubborn soil. He'd spent nights weaving intricate baskets, and he'd offered his strong back for meager pay at the market. Yet his lot remained the same. He watched his childhood friend, Kofi, pass by with a wagon full of ripe yams, his face beaming with the pride of a man who provided. Kwasi's heart twisted with a familiar ache, not of jealousy, but of shame. He was supposed to be a man by now, to have a home, a wife, a future. Instead, he was the ghost of a man, haunted by unfulfilled potential. His mother, her bones growing fragile with age, needed medicine he couldn't afford. The weight of his failure was a heavy, suffocating cloak. Days later, at the bustling central market, Kwasi sat with his unsold baskets, the shame burning in his cheeks. He watched a prosperous merchant, a man named Onyeka, count a thick wad of Sadie notes. Onyeka had once been as poor as Kwasi, but his fortune had turned with an almost supernatural speed. A man with a smooth, unsettling smile and eyes that held no warmth sat beside Kwasi. "You watch him, don't you?" the stranger said, his voice a low, hypnotic rumble. "He found a path others are too afraid to take. A swift path, past the toil and the hardship." Kwasi, his guard up, turned away. "I am a man of the earth," he said, the words ringing hollow even to his own ears. The stranger chuckled. "The earth gives only what it chooses. We give you what you desire." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "There are others who see your potential. Others who can lift you from the dust and into the light. All you need is the courage to walk a different road." He slipped a small, folded piece of paper into Kwasi's hand before melting back into the crowd. The paper contained a single address and a time: midnight. That night, after learning his mother's fever was worsening, Kwasi's last defenses crumbled. The fear of failure was now outweighed by the fear of losing her. The address led him to the edge of the great forest, a place the villagers revered and feared in equal measure. The air grew thick and heavy, and the sounds of the village faded behind him, replaced by the symphony of crickets and the rustling of unseen creatures. A single, rhythmic drumbeat, low and deep, echoed through the trees. It was not a celebratory sound, but a call to a solemn ritual. He followed the sound for what felt like hours, branches scratching at his face and tangled roots threatening to trip him. Fear gnawed at his resolve, but the image of his mother's frail body and the empty medicine bottle in his hand drove him on. He emerged into a hidden clearing, bathed in the orange glow of a roaring bonfire. Around it stood a dozen men in dark, hooded cloaks, their faces obscured. At the center stood a tall, imposing figure whose eyes, visible through the shadows, seemed to burn with an ancient power. "You have come," the leader's voice boomed, rich and resonant. "Do you seek a life of unending toil, or a life of endless reward?" Kwasi's voice, a trembling whisper, was swallowed by the night. "I seek to provide for my family," he said. "Then you have come to the right place. But there is a price. All gifts come with a price." The initiation was a terrifying, yet silent, ordeal. The cloaked men led him to the center of the clearing, where he was made to stare into the heart of the bonfire. The leader spoke not of blood or pain, but of sacrifice. "You will not bleed," he said. "You will simply give us a piece of yourself. The part that finds comfort in the simple things. The part that finds joy in the sunrise. The part that finds peace in a quiet life. That is your offering." A cloaked man approached with a strange, carved wooden box. Kwasi, mesmerized by the fire and the man's hypnotic gaze, felt a cold, alien sensation course through his body. It was not pain, but a feeling of something being torn away, a silent scream of loss from the deepest part of his being. He saw a fleeting vision of himself, laughing with his mother, sharing a meal with friends, a future of peaceful simplicity. And then it was gone. The leader smiled, a grim, final gesture. "The pact is sealed," he announced. "Go now, and may your harvest be endless." Kwasi's life changed with an almost unbelievable speed. The next day, a distant relative he barely knew died and left him a small plot of land rich with minerals. With a burst of energy and a mind suddenly overflowing with brilliant ideas, he found a foreign investor for the land, securing a loan he had previously been denied. His small trading business, which had once struggled, now flourished. Every deal he made was a success. Every investment was a windfall. He built a magnificent house of stone and glass, a fortress on the highest hill overlooking the village, a stark contrast to the small mud huts below. He drove a shiny new truck, its wheels kicking up dust on the very paths he used to walk barefoot. The villagers, who had once pitied him, now looked at him with a mixture of awe and fear. They called him the man of gold, but their praise felt hollow. He was no longer Kwasi, the poor farmer. He was a monument to wealth, a living legend, and an outsider. With his wealth came an impenetrable wall of isolation. His old friends, including Kofi, kept their distance. They saw the grand house and the fine clothes, but they also saw the haunted look in his eyes. The laughter that once came so easily was now a foreign sound. The joy he once found in a shared meal or a good story was replaced by a gnawing, profound emptiness. He would sit alone in his opulent living room, surrounded by expensive furniture and art, but feel a chill that no fire could warm. His nights were plagued by a recurring nightmare. He was walking through the forest again, but this time he was not following a drumbeat. He was following the sound of his own laughter, a sound that grew fainter and fainter until it was swallowed by the darkness. He would wake up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding, a man with everything but the one thing he needed most, peace. The secret society's grip tightened, not with chains, but with a web of insidious obligations. They did not ask for money. They asked for his unwavering loyalty. He was expected to attend their midnight meetings, not as a desperate novice, but as a valued member. He was given tasks: to influence a local election, to acquire land from unwilling sellers through threats, to turn a blind eye to injustices. He had to use his wealth and influence to serve their shadowy agenda. The leader, whose name Kwasi now knew to be Jabari, would simply smile and say, "You are a tool in our hands, Kwasi, a golden hammer to build our kingdom. Your riches are proof of your service." Kwasi realized with a sickening clarity that he had not found freedom. He had simply traded one form of slavery for a more comfortable, more insidious one. His luxurious life was a gilded cage, and the key was in someone else's hand. The breaking point came when he was asked to threaten the livelihood of an honest farmer who had refused to sell his land. The farmer was Kofi. Kwasi refused, and for the first time he felt a genuine fear, not of poverty, but of his own soul. Desperate, he sought out the village elder, a revered man named Nana who was known for his wisdom and connection to the spiritual world. In his simple, quiet hut, Kwasi confessed everything. He spoke of the pact, the wealth, the emptiness, and the terrible tasks. Nana listened, his face a mask of sorrow and understanding. "You have lost yourself, my son," Nana said softly. "The debt you owe is not to them, but to the part of you that was taken. To break free, you must be willing to lose what you gained. You must be willing to trade a life of wealth for a life of truth." The words were a heavy, painful truth, but they also offered the first glimmer of hope Kwasi had felt in years. Armed with Nana's counsel, Kwasi returned to the hidden clearing. He was no longer a desperate young man seeking a better life, but a man seeking to reclaim his soul. He found Jabari waiting for him. "You come to renounce the pact?" Jabari asked, his smile cruel and knowing. "You cannot simply walk away, Kwasi. What you gave, you can never reclaim. But you can choose your end. You can either walk away with nothing, and every person you have ever loved will be touched by our curse. A sickness will fall upon your mother, your old friends will lose their livelihoods, and your name will be dirt. Or you can stay and continue to prosper. The choice is yours. The ultimatum was a vicious blow. He could save his wealth and damn those he loved, or he could lose everything and give them a chance at peace. Kwasi looked at Jabari, and for the first time, the fear was gone. A profound calm settled over him. I choose to lose everything, Kwasi said, his voice steady and strong. As the words left his mouth, a great, thunderous sound shook the earth. The sky, which had been clear, turned a stormy green, with a blinding flash of light and a sound like 1,000 crashing waves. His magnificent house on the hill crumbled to dust. The expensive truck turned to a pile of rust, and the gold in his accounts vanished into thin air. He was left with nothing but the clothes on his back, standing in the same forest he had entered years ago. He walked out of the woods as the first rays of the morning sun broke through the clouds. He saw his village, simple and humble, and he felt a lightness in his chest he had not known since he was a boy. He was poor again, but he was no longer a ghost. He was Kwasi, a man who had faced the darkness and chosen the light. He had lost everything, but in doing so, he had found the one thing he had truly wanted all along, himself.